So the female in that situation then starts dissociating through sex. So she's there, but she's not there. And she has what we call the obligatory or I've heard it called like self-sacrificial sex, where she does it for him.
She's just there so she doesn't get fined.
Yep. When you're talking with teens, you got to treat them like they're capable of making smart decisions if you give them the information. So it's a mix of harm reduction.
After over 25 years of marriage, we've learned that successful couples have great friendships, put each other first, and focus on light just as much as love. We believe marriage should be fun and easy.
Our goal is to share our journey with the hopes of helping others build strong, happy relationships. Join us as we continue to create our lives beyond I do. Before we get into our episode, we want to share this disclaimer. We are not marriage counselors, nor are we mental health professionals. We simply want to share with you what has worked in our marriage. Now, on to our episode.
All right, we'd like to welcome you back to another wonderful episode of the Beyond I Do podcast. We have with us today a very special guest by the name of Angela Skirtu, MED, LMFT, CST. Now, we'll find out what those letters mean during our interview. Angela is a keynote speaker and author of books, Premarital Counseling, A Guide for Clinicians, Helping Couples Overcome Infidelity, a Therapist Manual, and the upcoming From Fuck No to Fuck Yes Sex. This year, she is launching erotic adventure retreats. So we'd like to welcome you, Angela, to the show.
Yay.
Thank you for having me.
I enjoyed saying that, by the way.
Did. I know. He was so excited. And if I'm not mistaken, has been released, the new book?
Yep, it's here. It's available on Amazon and my website. So if you have trouble finding it on Amazon, you can definitely find it on my website too. But it's here.
Slowly moving through it. I have the Kindle version because ordering is doesn't work well with my attention span and my need for instant gratification, but I am working through it.
I understand. I'm actually doing the audio version. I'm taping it tomorrow. So there will be an audible version as well. But you know how it is. There's steps, like first you get the book in the Kindle, then you get the audio, then, I mean, it's a whole book writing is its own separate business. Just like podcasting. You guys know podcasting is its own business too. It's like we all have like 12 businesses.
Right. Well, I'm looking forward to the audio version also, just there's something about hearing it, nonfiction, when it's from the author, and you get to add your personality to it. So we'll be on the lookout for that too. So if you would, he gave us your name and some letters. If you would tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do.
Yeah, so I am a couples and a sex therapist. I'll start with who I help. So my goal is to help couples who are best friends take their relationship from the friend zone to the sexy zone by normalizing conversations about sex. And I do that through a variety of products and services. Before I get into them, since you mentioned those letters, I'll explain the letters. So LMFT is Licensed Marriage and Family Therapist.
Okay.
And CST is Certified Sex Therapist. I'm also a supervisor in both of those. So I'm the trainer of the therapists in both departments. So I've been doing this work for almost 20 years, and I offer retreats. I also have this really fun event called Dinner with a Sex Therapist, where I do normalized conversations about sex. I get people in a room and I try to get them talking and getting comfortable with the topic, because essentially we're not really comfortable with sex as a society. I'm trying to change that.
So, and you say you've been doing this work for 20 years. How has the work itself changed in 20? I would imagine that now things are a little bit more open than when you started.
I mean, it's interesting. So sexuality comes in waves, right? There'll be these, like in the 60s, there was the sexual revolution and people got free, but then people kind of got more, it's like we pendulum swing when it comes to sex. So then people started to get a little more, conservative, and then it'll pendulum swing again. And it's typically when there's like big stars that come out, right? So like when I was younger, I was watching Talk Sex with Sue Johansson, who's this older lady nurse, and she would take client questions on the phone and like play with sex toys. Yep. And that was one of the things that made me think, oh, I got to do that. I definitely am going to do that job.
And I remember watching her.
Yeah.
I don't know if I retained any of what she said. I just was so in awe of this woman who was so comfortable and who was answering questions with people. And that's what I remember about her. And then I would think to myself, that's somebody's granny.
I just remember Dr. Ruth with her little accent. And
I think it's nice to see older women talking and comfortable about it, right?
I think it feels safer. It feels safer when it's coming from Granny.
I just wish I knew she was talking about at that time. You know what I'm saying? I could have learned some things, but
Yeah, well, and we're taking a pendulum swing. So to answer that original question, it's like we're taking a pendulum swing back, like getting more conservative or less comfortable talking. So I would say in my college years, I felt like people are a little more comfortable, and now people are taking a step back. I see more and more people nervous, more sexless marriages. Like what's funny, so I am building momentum with my Dinner with the Sex Therapist event, but the first thing people say is like, we're going to talk publicly around sex with other people. And I'm like, yeah, like that's how natural I want it to be. I want you to be so comfortable in your skin, like those old ladies that you used to listen to.
Right.
Sex is a natural, comfortable part of life. Then you can actually try things, explore things. But if you don't even feel comfortable talking about it, like I have people in this is my office, by the way, who can't even say sex out loud. They like whisper it or they dance around. They don't use the words. They're just like, when we're being close, I'm like, you mean sex? Is that what we're talking about? Let's be clear. And so I'd say people have really struggled to be open and comfortable. And actually, that's partly what my book's about, is teaching people to have a more natural, neutral relationship with sex instead of seeing it like, oh my God, there's sex in the room. What do I do? Terrifying people.
I think the general connotation with people is like, when they think of sex, they think of just hardcore porn. And they don't think of it in the natural, like, between couples, it's something that's beautiful. They're just thinking about it in that mindset. So it's like, that's where the tabooism comes in, because, religion teaches us that porn is like an addiction. And so it's like, we were taught from young children, like, say no to sex, abstain, until you're married. So then you have no education until you become married. And a lot of married people don't know what to do. So I think we're evolving a little bit, but like you said, there is a backwards. I think it's a sideward steps, like kind of.
I would agree with you. And actually that's another one of those formative stories that got me into this field. Is I was raised in purity culture, and it was all like shameful, sex is evil. But like once you get married, it'll be fine. And like literally every one of my friends would get married young because of it. Then about a year afterwards, so I've always been the person people talk to because I'm a little filterless. You learn. It's fine. How I do. But they would call me a year later and say, I'm not enjoying my sex life. I'm kind of just doing it for him now. And like literally one by one, they'd knock off like flies. And that was the start of it. But to your point about porn, because we don't feel comfortable talking about sex or educating our kids about sex, that's one of the, so this book is a book series. I actually plan to write a puberty book this year with my daughter who's 10. Because as I'm working through puberty and bodies and boundaries, which that's all it is at 10. Sex education is bodies, boundaries, and puberty, right? But like, as I'm talking to her, I'm finding other parents are like, well, what do you say? How are you supposed to talk to them? I don't know. And they realize there's a problem. They have no idea how to talk. And I think the generation prior had no education. We had no education. Then you got into marriage, and if porn is all you have, I'm sorry, porn isn't what real sex looks like. It doesn't present that sort of like, this is how it can be natural and wholesome and fun for couples. So I think you're absolutely right, Byron.
And nobody knows what the birds and the bees are.
I'm not. Did the birds have sex with the bees, or
right?
What happened?
All I know is I see the bees.
Yeah, I used to hear it on TV, and I'm like, what in the world? What does that mean? So
now, since you brought up speaking with kids, because I think that part of it is for us when our kids were younger. I was more comfortable talking to them, like you said, boundaries, their body. I was comfortable with that. Moving as they're growing older and maturing, how does that conversation change so that when they are older and they're exploring and they're having sex, they don't carry that stigma?
Well, so when they get older, you got to start talking about consent. And this is like the most important piece, actually, is that the teens are having sex, whether you like it or not.
Yes.
I think that when I was raised, purity culture was meant to try and prevent us from having sex before marriage. But all it really did was it put sex in our fight, flight, freeze, fawn mode. So your sympathetic nervous system. So some of us reactively had sex with no education or prevention to support ourselves and prevent unwanted pregnancies or STIs. So that's what happened on one side of the fence. The other side, people, like, it's usually your rule followers, by the way. So where people lands depends on where they land on the spectrum of rule following versus rebellion. If you think of yourself and where you land in that spectrum, right? So your rebels are going to be like, no, but they're going to be no aggressively because sex is now in fight or flight. Or your rule followers are going to completely shut down their natural desire and not be able to have good sex lives with their partners or really struggle to make the change. And that's what I have as a dynamic as people were raised. Like, literally, I am resolving purity culture problems every day in my work as a sex therapist. And so going back to, sorry, I'll do long stories and then I'll come back to the point, is that when you're talking with teens, you got to treat them like they're capable of making smart decisions if you give them the information. So it's a mix of harm reduction, consent, so that they learn how to actually verbally and non-verbally tell if somebody's okay or not okay with things, and layers, right? So there's different, let me break all of those down. So verbal and nonverbal consent is not just asking, hey, are you okay with this? But it's really looking at, even if somebody says yes, but they're like their body like, like, you know what? I want you to be consenting all around, head to toe. Like, if this is something you're not comfortable with, then okay, we don't have to do this. So like, that's one portion, is really having consent language. Harm reduction is the second piece, which is like, we have to look at the culture we're raising our kids in and social media and all these things that are out there. So for teens, we want to teach them ways to reduce harm. So like, some of them are sexting. Actually, a lot of them are, by the way. Like, these are the crabby things that are going on in the teen world. Sexting without realizing that if your face is out there and somebody uses it against you, like, you don't get to decide what happens to your image after you send it out.
Exactly.
So that's harm reduction is, okay, if you're going to do this, why don't you not use your head or think about where this image goes? Like, so harm reduction is really educating them on what happens to an image when it's out there, where it goes, how far it goes, and how the internet really doesn't forget any of this stuff. A second horrible thing going on with the teens and the young adults is revenge porn, which angers me, because it comes from, there's no consent conversation. We're not educating people on this harm reduction. And now people are using and hurting people, really hurting people. So like, even with situations like that, like, if we were teaching teens about like consent, like, hey, you don't get to take a video of somebody if they are not consenting to that. That is absolutely not okay. I don't think many of those people have ever had that conversation, or somebody say to them, do you know that you're actually committing a crime? FYI. They don't. They just do it. And so like having clear conversations to reduce harm and help people make educated decisions around sex is a piece of it. And then the third thing is layering, right? So like one thing, okay, so this is one of the gifts of purity culture, even though I have a lot of bad things to say about it. Here's one of the positives. I was more of the rule following type. So I did try to avoid having sex, but you know, when you're raised in a weird culture, then you find workarounds.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I learned growing up that you could make out, like you could set a boundary and say, hey, I'm only okay with making out. And like, I learned, probably because I'm filterless, how to have like clear, like I'm okay with kissing and hands over clothes, but no under the clothes. I could be that direct. But not everybody's as filterless as me. So what I would want to help people have conversations about is that, hey, did you know that there's boundaries? Did you know that there's levels of sexuality and intimacy you can enjoy? You can just enjoy kissing and say, that's all I'm okay with. Actually, you can practice setting a boundary with somebody. And if they agree to the boundary, that's actually a green flag person. Right. But if you say, I want this boundary, and they're like pushing you or putting you down for having that boundary, guess what that is? Red flag person.
Exactly.
So you can even figure out who's a good partner. Go on.
Right. No, I think it's important too to recognize that while teaching consent, because we tend to think we're teaching that to girls and to speak up. But what we really need to do also is make sure that boys understand how to accept that consent. Right. And like you said, kissing and over the clothes touching, you may get hot and bothered, and that's okay. But this is what I've consented to. And so going beyond that is not, is a no-go. So I think it's important because a lot of times we get hot and bothered, and I want to go further, even though you've put a boundary in place, but I'm sure you're hot and bothered also. Yeah. And so there's trying to push that boundary. And I think it's important that a lot of times we think of policing girls because boys will be boys, but we also have to teach boys
that. Teach the boys, exactly.
I would agree, and I would even add that boys can have boundaries too. Right. Like, it's not just, I think that because of that dynamic, boys have also been put in a position where if the expectation is they have to go all the way and they can't, then there's something wrong with them. Right. And so I would just add, like, any person, gender specific or not, has a right to have boundaries for what they want to do or don't want to do. There can be different levels of intimacy, and that both parties need to learn to treat boundaries. Like, the way I like to frame boundaries is you show love by accepting someone's boundaries, like deep love and respect for somebody. So if a guy is saying, hey, I'm open to kissing and touch, but I'm just not ready for this, then I would want his partners to be respecting of his needs and boundaries too.
And that's something that carries over into marriage and that the idea of consent, and yes, I'm open to this but not that, and just because we say I do doesn't mean that you do everything. You don't get to do everything.
Yeah.
And it's sad that we're learning this as adults in our later years instead of in our earlier years when we needed that education, because a lot of people find out when it's too late, when now you're facing charges, or I didn't know I was breaking a rule. And
there's a lot of unintentional harm happening because of that.
And it's having these discussions where I can think back to some of the things that I've done where I maybe coerced a young lady to go a little step further, and like, oh man, I did that. You know what I'm saying? And not realizing what I'd done because I just thought that, that was the norm for then. But, it's talking about this is very important, and making people more comfortable talking to their young adults, especially when they hit this college age, because college is like free for all. Hey, I'm out of the house and I'm going to explore. So these young adults need these lessons, definitely.
They do.
And the earlier you start, the easier it is. We were blessed with very vocal children. So a lot of things, they came to us and asked questions, and we were always open with them. in an age appropriate way. And so we were blessed with that. But I know that for some parents it's difficult, but it's so necessary. And I say that as a teacher who's around teenagers all day, every day, and good Lord, the stuff that happens in the high school. They discuss in the high school, and they're very comfortable with me as a teacher, which is a blessing and a curse. And so sometimes I have to say, hey, I'm a mandated reporter.
I don't know if this is something I have to share.
Yeah.
So you talked about your friends who, they started out and they're getting married young, and then about a year in, things arise and they reach out. What happens over time with those couples who life starts happening, kids come along, and they start losing that spark? What ways can they then start to come back together and reignite things?
Well, you asked two different questions, so I would like to answer both, actually. First is the trajectory. What happens? What ends up happening is they each get hurt in different ways from that point. So the female, so this isn't a typical heterosexual couple, right? So the female in that situation then starts dissociating through sex. So she's there, but she's not there, and she has what we call the obligatory or I've heard it called like self-sacrificial sex, where she does it for him.
She's just there so she doesn't get fined.
Yep. And she's there in body, but not in spirit.
Yeah.
Right. And she goes to Neverland, and she doesn't believe she has options or choices for her own pleasure. So she just goes along and does it for a time once that shutdown happens. Right. But then that also hurts the male as well. The male starts feeling like, am I doing something wrong? Should I be doing this? What should I be doing? Maybe I need to learn more. So they start feeling rejected, lonely, and abandoned. They also are getting a lot of their needs not met, like regular stuff, like men in this world aren't getting complimented. They don't feel safe to share some of their like interests or desires. They're just very lonely. And so that loneliness gets worse and worse. One thing that happens that helps it for a time is they start trying to have a child. And when they start trying to have a child, then sex starts to happen a little more, so they can get distracted by the baby making time, as long as there's not problems. If there are problems like IVF, then it really gets bad. But initially, if they have the typical trajectory, then they have sex more for the baby. And so it's like, all right, well, it's gotten a little better. So, and like the woman tends to be a little more interested because there's a goal, there's a purpose, right? But then after first baby, desire tanks for a variety of reasons, right? Like there's hormonal shifts. When you breastfeed, your body literally creates hormones that say, don't have another one of these. You've already got all your energy focused on this one, which is unfair because doctors say you're free and clear to have sex 6 weeks later, but you can be in that sort of postpartum experience for up to a year or 2 years, depending on how much breastfeeding you're doing and just how the body adjusts. So then it gets bad for a while, but then again, most people are having 2 kids. So there's another period where they're like, well, it got really bad, but hey, we're starting to have another kid. So they try, they're able to distract from it. They're also able to justify the low sex during the first kid because they're tired, they're busy, So there's a way that people basically justify things going wrong in their lives, right? And so but then after second baby happens, desire completely tanks and they stop having sex. And then a year or 2 later, that's when they come see me. So that's the trajectory question. Then how I help people is I've got to basically break that entire pattern. I typically need to sexually empower women, and I get men focused on the long game at first. So guys have typically been the pusher, the like, try this. They've bent over backwards to try and figure out this woman's desire. And really, they've been working alone in their sex life. So I ask them to take a step back while I help the woman sexually empower herself and give her permission to have pleasure and have things for herself. But that's not the end of the work. If I don't also then help the man to start sharing the things he wanted that whole time too, and letting him know he has boundaries, that he can also like have a role in the sex life, then it won't it won't fix the whole problem. I was like, yes, the female may be more sexually empowered, but the man's been hurt and lonely that whole time. And he's been left to the wayside, and he hasn't felt safe to share the things that he wanted that whole time. And so there's work on both sides, essentially. I just typically try to remind the man, like, hey, take a step back because you're playing a long game, to help her like relieve some of this dormant shame. But then we work on the male's dormant shame, because you can't, it always impacts both. It's just how it works. Like, you can't have one without the other.
Right. We went through.
Yeah, we went
through that when, as you were talking, my face, I would smile or giggle when you were talking about me, and then he would smile or giggle.
Oh, really? You're like, she's telling him a story.
The head was definitely nodding, and I remember that feeling like, I'm not doing enough, and the blank stare on her face. When I would get done, most of the time
she wasn't there.
Yeah, and I thought it was, well, maybe I'm not doing enough, so maybe I need to go investigate. And my investigation was, maybe I need to do another position, and it wasn't until she came to me and we started having discussions, actually really discussions, but she had to get comfortable with me.
Yeah.
In order to have that discussion. And once she started revealing, she had some trauma that happened to her, and we started working on those things, it actually got better, over time.
I had to realize also that, because part of it for me was, he wants to have sex. I had to understand he wants to have sex with me. So it's not just the act of sex, it's sex with me. And so that was a big hurdle for me to get over. And not feel like I didn't want to feel like an ends to a mean to an ends. And so that was a big thing too, because he had to tell me it's not enjoyable for me if it's not enjoyable for you.
Right. And
so it took a lot of those conversations for us to get to that point of, okay, I get it now. This is you, and this is your way of being intimate with me. And so we went through that cycle, and it was right around year 10-ish.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. The kids had, they were full-fledged, we taking them here and there. I was working.
Yeah, schedules were busy.
I was tired.
Yeah.
So, but once we got to a place of understanding each other's needs and those boundaries, and so when I did say, I don't feel like it tonight, it wasn't, he didn't feel rejected anymore. He understood.
Right.
I truly didn't feel like it.
And I think that a lot of times it is the communication and, helping to understand, like, okay, yes, I'm hyped. Yes, I'm ready, but you're not ready. So, and then I just got to the point where I was just like, it's not as enjoyable if it's just me enjoying it, and then I'm looking at her. So I stopped requesting, as much, you know what I'm saying? But, the discussion was definitely needed.
So how do you suggest couples, because it's an uncomfortable thing.
Yes, it is.
So how do you suggest couples get to a point where they can be open about these things and at least start the conversation?
Do you and your partner want to learn simple ways to grow closer?
Do you and your partner want to grow happier together?
Do you and your partner want to be a unified front?
Do you and your partner want to divorce-proof your marriage?
If you answer yes to these questions, you need to check out our book, Unlocking Forever, 10 Keys to a Successful Marriage Beyond I Do.
Each section focuses on a different aspect of marriage and briefly describes how we handled it in our relationship. At the end of the section, you're given an action step or key to complete with your partner.
These keys are practical steps you can immediately implement in your relationship and help you and your partner be proactive and intentional about your relationship.
You can purchase your copy on Amazon.com.
And until next time, we will holler at y'all.
Well, I'm going to do another shameless promo for my book.
Promo away.
Oh,
All
yes.
right. So
Yes.
in this book, what I start with is changing the mind-body connection to sex. And so it's all about changing the way you think about sex. So I know from the title, it may look like, we're doing all these crazy positions and Cosmo. And it's like, actually, no, it's about recognizing in your brain all those negative messages you have about sex and neutralizing them. And I have a very clear process for how you shift them from this is bad, this is evil, this is dirty, how dare you, to no, sex is a natural, normal part of life. And so when I help people start to neutralize sex first, you have to go neutral before you can go sex positive, by the way. Like that's too far across the spectrum to go from negative to positive.
Definitely.
So I start with neutrality and just teaching people to think about sex as a part of life. Sex is something that people do. Like even changing body shame and helping people neutralize their body experience with their body. Once you get people thinking about sex in a more natural and neutral way, what happens is they have more capacity to start trying and exploring different things. So then the second phase is actually it goes back to that teenage stuff that I wanted to talk about sex ed, right? Like the layers. I teach couples what I call creative sexuality, which is that there's multiple ways to be intimate and your whole body is capable of giving and receiving pleasure. For men, there's a retraining that sex doesn't all have to be focused on your dick. I guess I cussed already, so is it okay to say things? Okay, like, I already cussed. So
we've already said fuck, so I mean.
Okay, cool. So I have this video called Guys, You're Not Dick Dimensional. And what it is about teaching men that your whole body is capable of giving and receiving pleasure and that you need all of the forms of intimacy just as much as women do. You've just been only given in our society permission to show it in one way. And so for men, I'm giving them permission to be human people with all of their feelings and all of their affections and needs, and teaching them to like relearn how to enjoy those different sexual experiences. Like men can enjoy making out. It's fun. Men can enjoy getting a sensual massage. It's fun. Like it can be about feet pleasure. It can be about playing with the hair and the head. And so just giving you more options allows you to be intimate more because there literally is a variance of types of intimacy you're sharing. And then for females, what I'm doing is I'm helping empower them to know they have choices as well through creative sexuality. But for women, it's a lot of giving them permission to even have pleasure sexually. Because for us, we were abused around that. All of us, like society abuses women for being sluts, whores. So like women are just put down sexually, but men are allowed to be sexual, but you're not allowed to be any of the other things. And so it hurt you both just in different ways.
What
we've done.
Wow. That's I never even thought about it like that you go from the negative to a neutral and then to a positive. Because, when I think about all the negative stuff that I learned, over time, and it was like, now I'm trying to shift to the positive, but there is this. And we did go to that stage of neutrality.
Yeah. You did. When people who do it successfully have to spend some space just neutrally and curiously understanding themselves. What are you going to say, Margaret?
That's I think a lot of women don't really know what their body is capable of. And so for me, I'm comfortable enough with him to where I could, like you said, explore and try things, because I like orgasm and actual orgasm. That was something that I didn't experience until I was married and was comfortable enough to do and allow my body to do what it does. Before that, I wasn't with anyone that I was comfortable enough to be that vulnerable during that time. And so a lot of times I don't even know that women have fully experienced what their body is capable of, because if you are not with someone you trust and you can be open with, it's hard to realize that.
Absolutely. So I have two shames I want to talk about related to that, if that's cool. One shame is how we abuse men and women in society, and the other one is masturbation. Okay.
Oh, yes.
So let's start. We'll start with the first one.
Yes.
So we abuse men by you're allowed to experience these emotions: winning, angry, horny. Those are it. And we refuse, if you feel any of the other emotions, we beat you down. Like really, we abuse men.
Law violations. Yep.
And men are human people who have all the emotions.
Right.
But we as a society abuse you from the ground up for any emotions other than those three, and then flip it for females. So females get abused for angry, winning, being too competitive, and horny, sexy.
Right.
So, see the dynamic as you raise, right? So if you're allowed to it, then you get hyper focused and you're only allowed to show yourself up in one way. You avoid it, you lose connection to your body and your sexual energy, because it's evil. There's a way, just if you're being abused every time you show sexuality, a dissociation starts at a very young age, essentially, because you're like, ooh, I can't touch this. I'm not allowed to be around my body. How disgusting, like all of that. It's all negative messaging. So that's the first shame. The second shame is the way, and you guys said you're Christian, and I think different religions are working on this, but everybody's different. But there is a way that some Christian religions really put people down for masturbation. And that also causes dissociation, right? If you see your body as, I can't touch it, it's your body. It's your body.
It's yours.
It's yours. And so I really am careful about my language when I am working with my more conservative folks. I'll say something along the lines of, it's self-love and self-exploration. And to your point, Margaret, you can't learn to orgasm if it's not safe to explore your own body and how it works. And that's all it is you're like, oh, look at this cool thing I'm capable of doing. Right? Like, I didn't know when I touch it that way, I get to this level of intensity. How fun.
And even from the man's standpoint, how do I know, how to prolong myself if I don't practice? You know what I mean?
Exactly. How do you know what your body's capable of doing? How do you explore?
Right. Yes.
Exactly. So if we can frame this as a form of self-love and self-exploration, and like, again, pleasure, like the thing I didn't really say before that's part of sex education is pleasure, that it's okay to enjoy your body. Sure, there's a time and place, like, do it in your room or in the bathroom. It's just natural, and it's a healthy way of getting to know yourself. But if it's not okay to do that, guess what happens? The mind and body separate. We dissociate. And so essentially, many women have never had an orgasm in their marriages because they were denied orgasm from childhood. Like, oh, don't you do that? Disgusting. And so that's why my book focuses on neutralizing all those messages that really hurt everyone. And getting you, once you're in a more neutral relationship with sex, it's not sex that's complicated. It's that relationship we have with sex that's complicated. So once you create a healthy relationship with sex, then all it is fuck around and find out. Just diddle here, diddle there, see what works, find things that feel nice.
Yes.
And have a good time. And then you do it, you evolve throughout your life.
My biggest problem is, of course, growing up in the church, we were taught that everything in life was in the Bible. And I remember, a teacher actually telling me, read the Psalm of Psalms and you'll learn everything you need to learn. It's about love. It's about passion. And I'm like, but the Psalms of Psalms ain't telling me about, my penis is hard. And, naturally in my mind, I need to get rid of this hardness. How do you do that? Do you masturbate? So, I mean, it's like, the education on that is very null in our society. So how do you get a young man that's married, and we had people say that, the wives will feel like, well, if you're masturbating, then you're thinking about somebody else. So you can't be, a part of our relationship. So how do you break that barrier, in a young couple?
Well, it really depends on their value system. It's a complicated question, and it depends on what they believe. I deeply respect people's values. Wherever people land, I work with multiple types of valued people. So first, I just try to understand what their value system is around masturbating. When it is more challenging is when they're opposite. So sometimes one of them feels one way and the other feels the other.
Right.
And so sometimes what I'm doing is helping them make compassion choices for the relationship that this hurts your partner's feelings. So can you make a compassion choice to, and usually it's around porn, not masturbating. I've learned that if it's masturbating to porn, that's when people are hurt. But if it's masturbating without, people sometimes are a little more open, although it really depends on how far they, like where they land on their spectrum of masturbation, right? And so because I work with all of the people and all the values, if it's very strict in terms of what they're okay or not okay with, then I teach them ways to touch and connect with each other as a couple, because usually they're allowed to do different things as a couple. But I will make them aware that there will be limits and challenges, because there are. Like just like we were talking about, if you don't know how your own penis works, like, oh, I can hold off here, or actually, if I kind of lean into this side or this side, this actually helps me elongate, this makes me go quicker. Like, there will be limits. And there will be limits for females too, because again, orgasm, I do have my clitoris, so I'm gonna show my clitoris. This is a clitoris, and this is actually, the head here is just that little nub that people talk about on the top of a vulva, but really this clitoris spans way down here into the vulva, right? And so if you don't have the freedom to touch and explore and figure out, oh, what helps? So I want you to know, isn't this interesting? It looks kind of like a penis, doesn't it? With balls, because it is. They're the same tissues. We just got more of the estrogen hormones to make it kind of smaller, and the guys got more testosterone to make it bigger, but it definitely looks the same. FYIs. But so as a result, then, when you learn, like, you get your clitoris erect, just like a penis. So like building some blood pressure there, like just like with the male, like when you're rubbing his penis, blood goes to that area. Well, blood goes to the female's area too. Some of that you can learn with a partner, but like he doesn't own a vulva. He has no idea. Like it's literally feeling around in the dark. It's like, and some of them won't even turn lights on, so it makes it even harder. But if you have a freedom to touch yourself and explore and be like, oh, that's what's helping me get there. Then if you can also turn the light on, like, oh my gosh, how many people won't have sex with the light on? I'm like, how do you guys figure out each other's bodies? But then you could watch her, see what she's doing. And then like, there could be a learning or a coaching, like, oh, I didn't realize you would touch that way. I would do it differently. You could actually but talking about sex again. So I've got to normalize these conversations about sex, because people are having sex and not saying a word, not learning. They don't know if they're giving orgasms or not. And also women have been trained to fake it. So they are sometimes. And so I had this one couple, for example, that were together for 20 years. And she finally told him she had been faking orgasms, and he felt so betrayed, because it was dishonest. Right. And like, she was doing it because, well, obviously, like, women don't feel safe to talk and share what they're liking, and she didn't know what to do to help him, and she didn't masturbate or learn. So like, she was just trying to not hurt his feelings. And in the end, oh my gosh, like the betrayal of trust in them, like there was a whole process of trust building between the two of them to just help them come back. And it all stems from, we don't know how to talk about sex in a healthy, natural way. So like, really, a big part of my work is just naturalizing and normalizing the conversation, so couples can then say, potentially rub themselves and say, hey, this would feel nice. I try this when I masturbate. Why don't you try this? Or like, hey, let's see. Or for example, I have people, for going down on a girl, I always have the guy use the nipple and like try some licks up there where she can see it. It's like, oh, I see what you're doing. Try that down there now. So like, she sees the licks. Then he goes down on her, because again, you're tucked away. Like that clitoris is tucked down, so you can't see what he's doing down there. You just see a head. I'm like, I guess he's doing, I don't know what he's doing. It's like, to even tell somebody what to do, you need strategies. And no, that's not in the Bible. There is not a point-by-point system to teach people how to do that. You do that through my work.
Communication during is so important. And to be in tune and to pay attention to the reaction of your partner is so important.
Yeah, it is.
Part of the consent conversation.
And then remembering the reactions so that you get there quicker and can explore from there. So it just, the more comfortable and trusting that you are with your partner, the better it gets. We say all the times, they're not doing it right. Because like it continuously gets better for us. But that's because I have a partner who pays attention and who listens, and I am fully trusting of and comfortable with. I can explore, he can explore. If there's a no, there's a no, and that's just so important. So it
is.
There's a old 90s, I just thought about it. It was an old 90s comedy movie called Strictly Business. I don't know if you ever saw it.
I don't know if I did.
It had Tommy Davidson in it. Yeah, it was the 90s. And the young lady and the man, he was like this real uptight guy, and she was this uptight person. So in this point in this movie, they were having sex, and she was like, "Oh, there, to the left. Oh, no, right there. Take it though. Oh yeah, all the way. Just keep going. And it was comical at that time. But it just made me think when you were saying, those instructions, and that's probably what some people need to do, get away from the home and go to a hotel and, learn and be like, you tell me where to go, baby. so I can learn.
Exactly. Well, and it doesn't have to be verbal all the time. Like once you start having those conversations, then you can start reading that nonverbal communication of like, all right, I know this is something that helps them feel nice. And also, so for my creative sexuality, like I said, this book is just the start of many. It's the Open Bedroom Doors book series, and I'm going to be putting a lot out. But one of the types of sexuality is just exploratory. So I have 2 videos out on YouTube. One is how to make friends with a penis, and one is how to give a penis massage, which, by the way, I didn't expect that to be the video that went viral, but it's definitely the one. I'm an educator here, but that is the one that has the most views consistently. And that's fine. So, hopefully they're learning stuff because I did teach people stuff. But in both videos, it was not about getting off. It was not about like a quick, let's get this done. It was all exploratory touch, just learning how the penis works, learning to feel connected and close and like, oh, when I rub this way, what's it do? When I rub this way, what's it do? And like for a man receiving it, it feels very nice, but it's not goal directed. It's very exploratory. It's just, I have one if it's cool. I can.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
It's like you try this. Oh wait, I gotta use my golden penis, of course. You just play this.
Because why not?
Yeah.
And then like
Golden
even you
penis.
figure out, oh, I didn't realize when I touch it this way, it feels kind of like it'll get more hard. But when I mess with it this way, maybe it gets more soft. And it's just learning to develop a natural relationship with the penis, even like when you're playing with it. And I have one for vulva massage too that's very similar, where you're just exploring it and like you're talking, like what feels nice? Do you like this? Do you not like this? Would you want more whole hand? Like I have my vulva, like do you want more of a full touch? Do you want light strokes? There's like, I always call this the top of the clitoris is like the clitoral shoulders, right? So like you can do a little shoulder massage up here. But if you treat these like just natural parts of the body, then there's a lot of things you can learn from non-goal directed play. And I think when couples even get out of that pass-fail mentality that has to be all yes to sex or all no, no, there's layers, there's levels of intimacy. It makes it easier to say yes when you have options on the table. And they don't always have to be genital focused either. They can be, or just making the back feel nice. Did you know you can give an orgasm through the spine? Like you can use vibrators on this spine, see what happens, and again, it doesn't have to be about orgasm, but that's really what I'm teaching couples is how do you like really treat your whole body like it's capable of giving pleasure and change the way you think about sex in a more like wholesome, whole-bodied way.
Right. And in the bedroom, but also outside the bedroom, you can't do anything except be closer to a person that you have had conversations like that with.
Yeah.
Do you like it this way? Do you like that? That creates a closeness that transcends even the bedroom. When you are that comfortable with someone to explore or let them explore and to converse about it while you're doing it. So
that's when sex, I think, becomes spiritual and like soul connecting.
Yes, absolutely. So before we wrap up, you have plans to begin erotic adventure retreats.
Yes.
So if you could explain to us the premise of the erotic adventure retreat.
Absolutely. And so just as another shameless plug, you can find all of this at my website, openbedroomdoors.com. So all of my products, all of my services, go to openbedroomdoors.com, submit a contact form, and then you can be on my email list. So for couples retreats, the next one I have is coming up in October at Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri. And we are making a whole bodied experience. So I have yoga instructors, I have couples massage therapists, and I'm going to be teaching the intimacy building techniques and tantra skills, which tantra is just the blending of yoga and sex. Yoga is about getting our mind body connected and slowing down the sexual experience. So when you hear tantra, that's all we're talking about. It's just like, how do you slow down, get back in your body, be more present with your partner through intimacy, so that then you can have these conversations and improve your sexuality. And so we're going to have like some different yoga couples building exercises to help couples kind of get close, and also like create that mind body connection out of sex, because it's not just about sex, it's outside of sex. Am I in my body? Am I comfortable in my skin? We're going to do fire gazing. We're going to have just a lot of slow intimacy building skills. And then I'm so excited. I got some couples massage people coming to like teach actual massage techniques. And so that is happening at Lake of the Ozarks on October 24th through 26th. And again, it's all at my website, openbedroomdoors.com. And yeah, my hope is to continue, like I really want to help people get comfortable with sexuality and intimacy and finding each other, because that's what we all need.
Absolutely. And it's such a big part of marriage, and not just the sex, but the connection that's created, that there again transcends the bedroom. So
and I think that the connection that you gain will help the relationship in its totality, because if you feel comfortable, if you can have sex just to pleasure yourself, then when you make that connection with your mate, then that opens the door for other ways of communication, things to be able to talk about those things that may be hindering you or have hindered you in the past, So I think it's definitely important.
I wanted to add something. I mean, I could talk forever, but I'm also doing another couples retreat for a church. The first person who hired me was a pastor out in Pennsylvania. And I was just really proud of that, because as a sex therapist, there's often just this fear of like, what are they going to say? What are they going to do to my congregation? And so I also am available for hire for people's couples retreats. And I think one thing that is like helpful about me is I do deeply respect people's values. So I'm not here to try and change you. I may challenge you a little bit, and I hope you're open to that, because everybody has a bad relationship with sex right now. So yeah, I'm going to challenge you to be curious and open-minded, but I deeply respect people's values wherever they land on the spectrum. So I was really proud that my first hire is going to be at someone's church retreat, and I'm like, good for you. Wow. You care about your couple's sex lives. I'm proud of you.
That's amazing.
Such an important part.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
And when we post, we will make sure that your website is posted, and any promotional material, when you have it, feel free to share it, and we'll share it on our socials as well.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
Yes. And we would definitely
be here with us.
We most definitely would like to have you back at some point in time in the future, because, I'm really enjoying this, and I think it's eye-opening you have just explained things in such a way that I think more couples, period, need to be able to have this information so that they feel comfortable that, we can talk about this and we can discuss these things and, get over that hurdle, whatever that hurdle is in your life. So we definitely want to have you back in the future. So for those who have heard something that stuck out to you, wanted to get in contact, how can they reach Miss Angela Skirtu?
You can go to openbedroomdoors.com, because I'm Angela Skirtu and I open bedroom doors.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Beyond I Do podcast.
Please make sure to like this episode and also subscribe to our podcast. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at the Beyond I Do podcast.
And until next time, we will holler at y'all.